9 technologies have systematically destroyed everything that once made driving worth doing. One of them already became mandatory across Europe in July 2025, and I believe US market is next in line. Think back to when driving actually felt like something real. Your palms picked up every imperfection in the road surface through the steering wheel. That climbing engine note told you exactly when to grab the next gear. The brake pedal communicated grip levels before the tires would let go. Every input delivered a response, and every response carried meaning you could feel. Climb into any new car off a dealer lot, and that conversation has gone silent. Steering feels disconnected. Engine noise pumps through the stereo speakers because it's literally a recording, and mechanical feedback has been replaced by endless, meaningless beeps that communicate nothing useful while pulling your attention away from the road. Here's exactly how we arrived at this point, starting with the most fundamental connection between driver and machine. Number 1. Electronic power steering. Drivers who learned before 2010 remember what steering actually felt like. Eyes closed on a familiar stretch of road, and your hands could identify fresh asphalt versus aged concrete from vibrations traveling through the column. Tiny oscillations announced every surface change. Resistance shifted as weight transferred through corners, and the whole system carried on a constant dialogue with your fingertips. That dialogue went silent when manufacturers switched to electronic power steering. Nearly universal adoption arrived by the early 2010s, with the major transition sweeping between 2007 and 2012. Once accountants spotted the fuel economy gains, hydraulic systems stood no chance. A McLaren engineer broke down the physics for road and track, explaining that the electric motor's weight and inertia essentially acts as a mass damper, robbing drivers of information coming up through the road. Don Sherman at Car and Driver called it the latest technological cross we bear, pointing out that steering serves as the driver's main line of communication with the car. So McLaren retains electro-hydraulic systems because their engineers grasp what drivers need. Subaru kept pure hydraulic steering in the WRX STI until its 2021 discontinuation. Everyone else traded that intimate connection for approximately 1 extra mile per gallon. Steering is how you communicate with the car, but the transmission is how the car communicates back. And that brings us to another piece of mechanical honesty that's been compromised. Number 2. CVT transmissions. A proper gearbox creates rhythm that anyone with a manual license recognizes instinctively. Revs build, the engine note climbs, and your senses tell you exactly when to grab the next gear. Acceleration arrives in pulses matching the mechanical reality under the hood. CVT transmissions shatter that honesty completely. Jatco, a Nissan subsidiary, manufactures nearly half the world's CVTs, and these units have spread through Chrysler, GM, Mitsubishi, Honda, Toyota, and Subaru. Floor the accelerator and engine RPMs scream toward redline immediately, while the vehicle barely moves. Then speed catches up in a strange surge that contradicts what your ears reported. Mechanical connection has been swapped for a rubber band. Reliability matches the disappointing experience. Over 263 complaints flooded NHTSA regarding the 2013 Nissan Altima's CVT failures, with average breakdowns around 60,000 miles. Nissan eventually allocated $590 million for warranty extensions, covering roughly 3 million vehicles. Mazda refused to adopt CVTs entirely. BMW, Mercedes, and Porsche made the same choice. These manufacturers recognize that driving experience outweighs another mile per gallon. So transmission lies about what the engine is doing, but at least the engine still makes real sounds, right? Well, not anymore. Number 3. Fake engine noise. Everyone who fell for cars remembers a specific engine sound that hooked them. Maybe the high-pitched wail of a Honda VTEC crossing into cam changeover. Maybe the mechanical snarl of an old BMW inline-6 chasing redline. These sounds originated from air rushing through intake runners, exhaust pulses hammering through pipes, and valves dancing at thousands of cycles per second. Starting in 2011, manufacturers began swapping those sounds for recordings. Volkswagen debuted the sound actor in the Golf GTI, while BMW introduced active sound design in the M5. Volkswagen mounted a hockey puck-sized device on the firewall that vibrates the windshield glass. BMW plays recorded engine samples through the stereo synchronized to throttle position. The Dodge Charger Daytona carries something called fratsonic chambered exhaust, essentially a speaker in a tube pretending to produce V8 sounds, and that system actually faced recall for missing components. Washington Post coverage in 2015 labeled this the automotive industry's dirty little secret. One BMW owner nailed the sentiment after disabling active sound design. If the noise is fake, I don't want it. They've numbed the steering, disconnected the transmission, and faked the engine sounds. You'd think that would be enough. But regulators decided they needed to go further. Number 4. EU speed limiters. Every driver understands moments requiring quick acceleration, passing a truck on a 2-lane before oncoming traffic closes the gap, merging onto a fast-moving highway, escaping a dangerous situation. Capability when circumstances demand it separates safe driving from helpless driving. Electronic restrictions on that capability arrived on July 7, 2024, when intelligent speed assistance became mandatory for all new EU vehicles. By July 2025, the requirement extends to every vehicle on the road. These systems read speed limit signs or pull GPS data, then physically limit speed by cutting engine power. Pressing harder on the accelerator can push through the resistance, but the system reactivates automatically every time you start the car. Permanent deactivation doesn't exist. UK Consumer Organization, which documented cases where vehicles registered speed limits as 80 miles per hour in 30 zones because a camera misread a sign. No American federal mandate exists yet, but the National Transportation Safety Board recommended in November 2023 that ISA become standard by 2030. California attempted legislation requiring it by 2030, but Governor Newsom vetoed the bill in September 2024. Now we're in a point where speed limiters control your acceleration, but at least you still control where the car goes, right? Not entirely. Number 5. Lane keeping systems. Decades behind the wheel develop lane positioning into pure instinct. Peripheral vision, subtle steering feedback, and years of muscle memory combine into automatic awareness. You adjust position to give cyclists room, set up early for turns, and stay comfortable on varying roads without conscious thought. Modern cars assume they understand positioning better than your trained instincts. Lane keeping assist jumped from 1.4% of vehicles in 2015 to over 86% by 2023. A federal mandate through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law will eventually require these systems on all new American vehicles. Back in 2016, only 33% of Honda owners kept lane departure warning activated, while 99% left forward collision warning running. That gap instantly identifies which system helps and which one just annoys. Electronic systems now control your speed and fight you for steering. The last refuge used to be the transmission. That escape route is disappearing too. Number 6. Manual transmission decline. Rowing through gears meant active participation in driving. Left foot on the clutch, right hand moving the lever, right foot blipping throttle on downshifts. 3 limbs coordinating in patterns that rewarded precision and punished sloppiness. The car demanded attention and returned genuine involvement. That experience is vanishing. Less than 1% of new American vehicles offer manual transmission, collapsed from nearly 35% in 1980. Only 32 models carry manual options for 2025, down from 36 the previous year. The Camaro disappeared entirely. Challenger became the automatic-only Charger Daytona. Honda dropped manual from base Civics, and Mini abandoned it completely. BMW board member Frank Weber put it bluntly, "It's over for manuals, and anyone wanting a manual car needs to buy it now." Here's where manufacturers miss the point. Build a genuine driver's car and offer manual, and drivers choose it. Toyota GR Corolla achieves 97% manual take rate. Subaru WRX hits almost 87%. Hagerty's data shows manual transmission vehicles command a 17% resale premium. The market screams that connection matters, but the industry has covered its ears. Manual transmissions gave drivers a mechanical link to the drivetrain, and there's also one more link that's been severed, and this one is even simpler. Number 7. Electronic parking brakes. Anyone who learned on a mechanical handbrake remembers the satisfying click of the ratchet engaging, that physical sensation of cables pulling tight, the certainty of knowing the car was locked because your own hand locked it there. BMW introduced electronic parking brakes on the 2017 series, and now 92% of new vehicles carry them. Volvo, Jaguar, Porsche, Mercedes, and Audi have eliminated mechanical options entirely. Home mechanics face serious obstacles. Changing brake pads requires a scan tool to activate service mode before accessing the calipers. Budget tools run $60 to $100. Manufacturer equipment costs thousands. And Hyundai's system carries a $6,000 price tag. One Ioniq 5 owner requesting credentials for home repairs was told those are reserved for qualified technicians only. UK repair data shows electronic brake fixes averaging around $1,050 versus roughly $190 for mechanical, more than 5 times higher. Ford recalled over 870,000 F-150s for electronic parking brake problems, with 19 activations occurring while trucks were in motion. One forum member captured the loss simply: driving is pretty much no fun anymore. Parking brakes used to be mechanical, and so were engines in a way that mattered. That experience is being engineered out too. Number 8. Rev-limited engines. Anyone who's driven a high-revving naturally aspirated engine knows a sensation modern vehicles cannot deliver. Power rushing in through the upper reaches of the tachometer, engine note climbing toward a mechanical crescendo, the feeling of a car coming alive when you finally push it. Honda's legendary S 2000 F20C screamed to 9,000 RPM. Current Civic Type R stops at 7,000, a 22% reduction. The E46 M3's inline-six reached 8,000, and BMW called it the culmination of 6 decades perfecting that formula. No true successor emerged. Modern turbocharged engines dump torque low in the rev range, eliminating any reason to chase redline. That sensation of an engine coming on cam doesn't exist when peak torque shows up at 2,500 RPM. Road and Track captured what enthusiasts feel. Now that Honda has embraced turbocharging, the days of 8,000 RPM Hondas are probably over. But don't be sad they're over. Be glad they happened. They've numbed the steering, faked the sounds, limited the revs, and removed the manual gearbox. If all that wasn't enough, they added one final insult. Number 9. The beeping apocalypse. Count the warning sounds next time you drop into a new car. Seatbelt chime, door ajar alert, lane departure beep, forward collision warning, blind spot ping, speed limit notification, parking sensor cascade, attention monitoring alarm. They blur into an anxious chorus that fractures concentration rather than improving it. Atlassian measured that for every reminder of the same alert, attention drops by 30%. A 2024 study documented participants becoming desensitized, eventually ignoring warnings, including legitimate safety-critical ones. Historical irony makes this frustrating. Congress banned seatbelt warnings exceeding 8 seconds back in 1974 because public hatred was so intense. That lesson has been completely forgotten. Insurance surveys confirm what drivers experience. 52% rarely rely on assistance technologies, 42% reported distraction from warnings, and 63% disabled features specifically because they're annoying. Even the European Transport Safety Council acknowledged that audible warnings annoy drivers and get switched off, and deactivated systems provide zero benefit. That's 9 separate attacks on the driving experience. The question is whether anything can be done. Market data reveals drivers increasingly look backward. Hagerty's index tracking 1980s and 1990s vehicles appreciated between 42 and 73% over 5 years, while Ferraris actually declined. Generation Z accounts for roughly 10% of Hagerty insurance quotes. Young buyers are hunting experiences new vehicles cannot provide. A handful of manufacturers still understand. Mazda builds around Jinba Ittai, horse and rider as one, with 70% of MX-5 buyers selecting manual. Gordon Murray created his T50 as deliberate rejection of current trends. At 2,174 pounds, with a 12,100 RPM V12, 6-speed manual, no power steering, and minimal electronics, Top Gear declared it the last great analog supercar. Alpine engineered the A110 at 2,425 pounds, approximately 25% lighter than a Porsche Cayman. Gordon Murray uses one as his daily driver. We all remember a car that meant something to us. Maybe your first set of wheels, cheap and unreliable, but somehow felt like freedom. Maybe your father's car where you learned what a clutch pedal does. Maybe something from a poster you finally bought decades later. Those cars talked to us. They had character, flaws, and personality. They needed us to understand them, and we became better drivers because of it. What's replacing them doesn't talk. It lectures, it beeps, it second-guesses every decision and fights every input. Somewhere along the way, driving stopped being something we did and became something that happens to us. If you've got a car you love, hold on to it. If there's one you've always wanted, stop waiting. The window is closing, and when it shuts, nothing like these machines will ever be built again. Some of us were lucky enough to drive when driving still meant something. The least we can do is make sure a few of those cars survive for the people who come next. I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment and tell me about the car that made you fall in love with driving. The one that taught you what a real machine feels like. Maybe it's still in your garage, maybe it's long gone, but I guarantee you still remember exactly how it felt behind the wheel. If this video resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe. There are more conversations like this one coming, and I'd rather have them with people who understand why this stuff matters. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.